Hello, my lovelies. How are you all? It's a gorgeous Tuesday. It's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've been in here, so apologies. You're slightly different background today because it's all a bit hectic, but it doesn't matter. So I hope if there are comments and various different things, I managed to pick them up. So today we are talking about pelvic floor in your Pilates sessions. And this is something that I keep hearing and I see it in forums and groups and various different things. And that's pelvic floor is not in the scope of a Pilates instructor. Refer out. Blanket statement. And I don't agree. I don't agree at all. And I know why this kind of comes up and it crops up. And that's often because people are like, I don't really know, if I should be doing this. I'm not a woman's health physio. Is this in my scope? Is it out of my scope? And I definitely used to feel whenever anyone sort of said, oh, I've got, pelvic floor issues. I cough when I leak. Nope. I leak when I cough. Or, they mention prolapse or anything like that. I'd be like, oh, I'm not sure this is for me. Like I think I've got to refer you out. And I'd get really kind of like up in my head about, am I qualified? Am I not qualified? And so I just want to unpack that today, and to kind of just give you some peace of mind, but also some clarity. And first up, what is not in scope for us? I think that's kind of an important distinction. So we are not, unless of course you are qualified to do so, we are not doing intravaginal exams. We're not internally assessing our clients. We're not diagnosing, okay? You are not going and saying, you have an X grade pelvic organ prolapse or you have a hyperactive pelvic floor. We are not diagnosing anybody, and we're not prescribing kind of medical interventions. We are not replacing women's health physios. And we're not kind of managing really complex, really, we're not going to be dealing with, what the first port of call for, say, a grade 4 prolapse, for example. All of those things are specialist clinical roles, and that is not your territory. You may end up working collaboratively with those sorts of specialists, but that is not who you are, unless, of course, that is who you are. But what is in scope for us Pilates instructors is teaching movement and teaching breath and how to manage loads, how to manage intra-abdominal pressure, how to cue the integration of breath, pelvic floor, abdominal muscles, how to notice when a client is struggling and to then modify exercises, noticing patterns, and kind of then also noticing when things aren't quite right, and then having a proper referral pathway. Like, that is what we're supposed to be doing. And if you're teaching core activation in your classes, then you are already teaching pelvic floor because they have a synergistic relationship. And so the question isn't really about whether or not pelvic floor work is in your scope. The question is more around, do you understand what it is that you're doing when you're cueing breath and pelvic floor and core activation? The issue, kind of the risk that I see happening with more and more Pilates instructors where it comes to the pelvic floor, is that they're just avoiding it in order to kind of play safe. And so whenever people come up to them with any complex issues or questions, they just sort of sidestep it. Or they just default to kind of very basic cues like lift and squeeze, and just because that's kind of all they've been taught. All they've been taught is like a Kegel, and therefore they're like, right, the Kegel is pelvic floor, the end. And that is where I just feel it becomes so uh, basic that it makes it seem much more complicated than it really is. And just sticking to a Kegel is not really preparing the pelvic floor for everyday life. And I don't know if you guys saw, there was a report, I shared it in the group about maternity services in England, and the fact that almost consistently women are being failed by poor support during birth and in recovery. And, there's no denying it. There are parts of the NHS and the care system that is absolutely incredible. And then there are parts that are really, really fucking woeful. And for many, many women, they're leaving hospital having had very difficult birthing experiences, some with a little t for trauma and some with a capital T. And often for many women, you will be the first person that they move with, and that they, the first professional person that they come to. Often before they've seen a physio. A lot of my clients never see women's health physios because they're like, well, I'm fine. Um, and often, you're the first person that they are able to talk to about their body beyond beyond the midwife or the health visitor, because often their focus is on the baby and they sort of go, you all right? And you go, yeah, I'm fine. So sometimes our clients need a little bit longer to process what's happened to them. And that doesn't mean that we take on the role of being a therapist, but we do take that kind of responsibility and our role, we take that seriously. So if a woman says to you, you know, I leak when I sneeze, or when I go and catch my toddler, or whatever it might be that they're doing that's bringing on that pelvic floor dysfunction, it's not okay for us just to simply go, oh, I don't know. Because if you're referring from a place of fear, you're just avoiding actually helping them. But if you're referring from a place of like confidence, because you're like, right, I've assessed you for this and I've discovered these things, you are now out of my scope and I'm going to refer you. That is a professional, clear kind of course for your client, rather than just pushing her off to a women's health physio because you're like, oh, I'm not sure. And the thing that most Pilates instructors find is that their training covers the pelvic floor as part of like the core system, which obviously it is. And they talk about kind of, the fact that there's a synergistic relationship between the diaphragm and the pelvic floor, the anatomy side of things, fine. But what they don't often teach you is what happens when there are things that aren't textbook, when there is pelvic floor dysfunction. Also, what are the symptoms between overactive and underactive pelvic floor? Like, how are they going to show up for your clients? And why defaulting all the time to Kegels is not the answer, because for some clients, an overactive pelvic floor is not going to want more tension in it. And also, you're not given that clear referral pathway of what to do and who to refer to when certain things happen. And so I just want to get out of this headspace that pelvic floor work is a specialist territory. It's foundational if you're teaching postnatal women, and you need to be aware that you are going to have women who come to you with pelvic floor dysfunction if you are teaching postnatal women. But you don't need to be a woman's health physio in order to help them. You need to understand enough to teach within your role, your scope, to know how to adapt to whatever it is that you're seeing, when a referral is needed, and so that you can just stop kind of being like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? That is being a professional Pilates teacher. You're not overstepping, coming out of your scope. You're actually being really fucking clear about where you begin and where another professional begins. And this kind of like, what do I do? How do I discover it? What do I, what questions do I ask for my clients? Like, how do I know whether it's hypertonic and hypotonic? That's what I'm going to be teaching you guys in the Beyond Kegels workshop that is happening on the 12th of March. So this is, again, it's not about diagnosing, it's not about turning you into a woman's health physio. This is about you understanding within the context of your role as a Pilates instructor, what is the difference between an overactive and an underactive pelvic floor? How does it present itself? You're going to know when strengthening is appropriate and when you need to focus on relaxing, and the kind of more release work. Teaching pelvic floor within the context of your classes as well, rather than it just being this like, I'll just run a workshop on pelvic floor. How do you put it into your actual classes? And then being really clear on when a referral is the right next step for your client. So it's 60 minutes. It's specific to Pilates instructors. There's going to be a live Q&A at the end, so you can ask me whatever might be bubbling away in your brain. If there are any kind of questions you want to ask about that, please just pop them in the chat. And yeah, it's 11 o'clock. I forgot to say that. It's 11 o'clock on the 12th of March. And yes, there will be a replay. It will be available for 5 days because I know that like a 24-hour replay is just annoying. At the time that I'm going live, the link that is in the comments is not actually working because my sort of provider is being affected by the AWS attack in the UAE. So I'm hoping they resolve that really fast. So I've put the link down, hoping that that resolves itself really soon and that link becomes active again. But if when you watch this, you're like, yes, I want the information for Beyond Kegels, and the link isn't working, just put me a little thumbs up emoji, and then I will get in touch with you as soon as that link is live. Anyway, I hope that was useful. Give me any comments or questions that come up about that and your scope and your role, and hopefully given that that's given you a bit more confidence about your role and scope for pelvic floor in your classes. And I hope you can join me for the pelvic floor workshop next week. Mwah! See you soon.